We are now going to work on Chapter 38. Topic is Java Server Pages. And the acronym, of course, for Java Server Pages is JSP. JSP, as you're soon to discover, most of you here in this web program or SharePoint program have been exposed to PHP and perhaps ASP.NET as well. And you're going to see a commonality between how JSP works and those other two technologies. The crux of it really is that with servlets, which we just looked at, we were writing the HTML code within the Java code. Here, we're writing HTML files that contain Java server pages code. So JSP code will be nestled into the HTML. And just like PHP, we'll write a little HTML, we'll do a little PHP. Well, same thing with JSP. They get intermingled, and the programming logic sits right within your HTML file. Doesn't mean that you can't call in external class files. You absolutely can, because you're still working with Java code. But the example that we're going to use is a pretty simplistic one. We're going to do the same thing we did in Chapter 38. We're going to do like the preliminary little like how to get started tutorial, make sure it runs, and then we're going to go and build the exercise. All right. Now, what's interesting about Java server pages is really, until Java Server Faces came out and is now gaining traction and being pushed, this was the preferred way for people to write server-side Java code that pushes to the browser. In fact, when you guys are working in Blackboard, and I know I've said this multiple times, that's a JSP environment, and it's database driven. Now, we didn't do this with servlets, but servlets and JSP can both interface with the database just as well as they can with just the simple text stuff that we're doing. So all those database techniques that we're employing, they can be wrapped into this as well. So keep that in mind as you're thinking about creating that final project. All right. So one thing you're going to see with JSP in terms of format, as you look at my screen here, and you can see the little highlight, we basically have a regular little HTML structure here. It's nothing fancy. In fact, it's missing a doc type in most normal conventions. But it is HTML code. And you can see we just have nestled right inside of it ASP style. That's what these are called. When you see the % sign, those are called ASP Style Tags. Ruby people, do you recognize the equal sign that follows it? Right? And you guys, my people that are taking the Ruby class right now, we do the same style of tag when we take embedded Ruby and we put it in HTML. It's the same delimiter. And when we use the equal sign in Ruby, that implies that that code is also going to output to the browser. If that was not there, it's just code. Right? It's doing something in the background that doesn't need to push to the browser. It might be doing math, for example, or running a series of steps. All right, so that's something important to note. So in this case, what would happen, of course, is that we would get a snippet of text on the screen. It instantiates a new date object, and that runs, and it pulls back the current system date, and then it outputs it to the screen. Piece of cake. That's our first task here. So we're going to follow the directions that are here. And once again, I'm going to pull this off to my second screen. I can grab the title bar. And then you guys can follow along with me in NetBeans getting this to work. All right, so first thing we're going to do is let's go ahead and you know what? Actually, I'm not even going to change the project we're working in. We don't even need to do that. Can you believe that? We put servlets in here before, right? Now we're going to do JSP. And guess what? You can totally do that. So you can actually mix these technologies together as you see fit. That's kind of interesting in and of itself. So I'm just going to right click. I'm going to do a new and I'm going to choose JSP. Please keep in mind that if it's not on this list, go to Other at the bottom and search for it. This is chapter 38. Okay, with this one, I'm just going to call this one time. Just basically because that's what we're doing with it. We're just going to display the time just to see how it works. All right, not really much else here to choose from. And believe it or not, you can click Finish. And it's done. So now you see the difference here? We have an HTML file. The whole basic structure is there. We only have one ASP style tag here. And now we're going to take that current time, which we're just going to basically copy from the book. So the book's got this code, right? And if you look at the code here, we're just going to type it in because there's hardly anything to really type in. So I'm going to take that, and why don't I just create like a paragraph or something and say the current time is, so ASP style tag with an equal sign because we're outputting to the browser. We'll say new Java util date parens, and then we'll close it. And that's it. Notice that because we have one single statement, we don't have to put the semicolon at the end of the statement inside the tags. You still can. If you want, that's fine. I'm just going to leave it just like this. I'm going to do a Control S to save. And then I'm going to get ready to run it and see what happens. So I'm going to pause for a moment first. Okay, and before I do that, everybody's pointing out my bad coding skills. Got to close that paragraph tag. These guys are jumping on me. Apparently I have taught you well. Because now you're doing the same thing I do, is I just see it when other people make the mistake, and then you guys are seeing it too, so you are getting somewhere. All right, quick pause to let everybody catch up. All right, now that everybody seemingly caught up, I'm going to go ahead and save my work. And we're going to run it. So notice that the JSP file where that's stored, that's up here with the web pages. And I'm actually just going to right-click directly on the file and run it. Glassfish is already running in the background somewhere. And we have success. Yep, I just right-clicked directly on that file. All right, once again, I'm gonna pause here, and then we're going to jump into the exercise. All right, I'm going to pull my book back onto the screen here, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of this chapter, and we're going to search for our exercise. And I'm sure you guys can anticipate what exercise we're doing, which is factorial all over again. So same techniques, but this time we have, basically the good fortune that we just did it here, right? Already have our logic laid out. We've already done it in Notepad++, wherever that is. So, I may as well do that split window thing here. Except I just split them over to my second screen. That's not what I want. Well, let's try those Windows key commands again. There we go. Once again, same logic, different format. This is JSP. So since it's JSP, this is a piece of cake, right? In fact, it's such a piece of cake. I'm going to show you kind of a way to cheat on this a little bit. Shouldn't say that, right? This is our servlet factorial output, right? We already have a table. If I did a look at the output of this, right? It doesn't have any Java code in it. It's just the code that was generated by the code. But the table code is there. And that's just straight HTML. I'm just going to copy that. So I'm just going to drop that in right here. Oh, it looks like our projector failed here. I'm pausing. Right, we figured out our projector issue here, so we're going to pick up where we left off. All right, so since we're working in straight HTML, we can just drop straight HTML directly onto the page. We don't have to do an out statement or anything weird like that. So just straight HTML. And then the next part of our logic here, looking at our older version, is we go into the loop. All right, so I don't need this first TR tag here, right? But doesn't mean I'm getting rid of it, because I can just write my for loop. You're going to watch how beautifully simple this is. I'm going to create an Asp Style Tag, and I'm going to put my for loop in it. And I'm going to close my Asp Style Tag, because the next thing that's going to happen is we're going to go back to HTML. So just like with PHP, I'm going to intermingle my HTML and JSP, and every time I do JSP, I'm just going to put the tags around it. Piece of cake, I think. All right, so we're going to do a TR tag, and then we're going to output a TD. Inside that TD, we are outputting to the screen, so that's why I have an equal sign on this one. We're going to put in the I, close the tag. We're going to put in our closing TD. See the pattern here, folks? And then really, I mean, this code is basically written. I'm just going to grab this stuff. I have to obviously delete some concatenation and quotes and stuff, but not a big deal. The only thing we're going to have to worry about, obviously we have to pull that method over. We'll do that last. Is making sure that our Java statements are complete and optimally closed, and we'll find out if they aren't. And then of course we have to close our TD. We did that, and then we have to close our TR, so we just need a closing TR here. And I am getting an underline for this missing method. But really we have all the components. We have the TR, a TD with an I in the middle, compute factorial, once again based on that I, close the TD, close the TD, close the TR, close the TR, for loop is done. So after the for loop is done, I do have to write the Asp tags that close the for loop, just so I can do that. And ideally, we would also have semicolons in these spots too, but because these are standalone statements, I can actually skip that, which is the irony of it, because they're in separate tags, they don't need to be closed. All right, now we're going to take this method here, pre-created. We can put that anywhere we want on our page. I'll just put it down here at the bottom. Doesn't really matter. It does need to be inside ASP tags, or the JSP tags, but it does not need the equal sign at the beginning. And it's throwing a little error here. Let's figure out what it is. Illegal start of expression. So now we have to figure out what's wrong with it. Do we in fact need to put the equal sign there? Nope, we don't. Maybe Cindy Lou, you read my mind. You're one step ahead. See, I can tell you read the book. But yes, we do need to add the exclamation. And can you give me an explanation as to what the exclamation does? Basically what that does is it allows us to do a block of code instead of one line at a time. So we can use full-blown Java expressions with the semicolons. Okay, so that should do it, believe it or not. So you see how this works, and this is kind of cool. So that's why, like, if you are comfortable with PHP and ASP, the transition to this is not difficult. All right, so I'm going to save this. And then we're at the point where we're ready to get it to run. So I want to do that before we run out of time here. So I'm going to come up here to the time JSP file. Yes, I still left the time thing in there. And then I'm going to run it. And don't worry, I'll come back. You can look at the code. So here comes the run. And I'm hoping my browser is running somewhere in the background. Oh, somebody's got errors. All right, time to panic. All right, I think I trained my students well. We figured out what the problem was. Everybody's getting errors here. See, the closing tag for this expression is outside the closing JSP tag. So, all right, look, all the little red things went away. We'll do a Control S to save, right click and run, and we have succeeded. All right, folks, that is chapter 38.1. I'm going to go back to the code, or exercise 38.1, and just to review the code real quick. Standard HTML, JSP tags, which are basically ASP style tags. If we're doing single lines, if we're doing output to the browser, we got a block of code. And that's all there is to it. It's very easy to intermingle it with regular HTML. This might be a very plausible approach for your project if you choose to go this way. And this video ends here.